Hey guys, it's Eric again, coming at you with another media morsel. Today we're going to talk about the top 10 cheap, go-fast things that you can do to your car right now to help enhance the performance of it. Some of them are free, some cost a couple bucks, some of them a little more. But it's what I consider the top 10 things that I think are the best bang for the buck. So let's dive into it, all right? So first thing we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about aluminum wheels. Now, aluminum wheels, you're going to say, Eric, come on, man. They're not cheap. I know, but listen, for how much you'll pick up and drop ET and pick up mile an hour, they're worth it. Why? Because it's not static mass, it's rotating mass. So therefore, it's a little more. So let's jump into it here. Let me just show you. You don't have to get, Hoosiers and that kind of craziness, okay? If it's a street car, you're going to leave if you're going to leave the wheels on the car all the time, make sure that you get a street wheel. They make aluminum street wheels that work great for the street, and they'll take the abuse that street driving can put on them. Do not get drag wheels if you're going to run them on the street. The reason I say that is because they're thinner. The aluminum that they use to make those wheels is super thin because they're trying to save weight. They do that by making it thinner, obviously. Unfortunately, the strength isn't there, and it doesn't have to be, because when you're at a drag strip, remember, you don't have a pothole in the middle of the freaking hammer lane that you're going to hit doing 65 miles an hour. It's just not there. If you live in Pennsylvania like I do, these morons put a freaking pothole in a manhole cover right where the tire runs. You'll go like 2 feet and the thing will be busted. So, with that being said, make sure, unless you're going to change the wheels every time you go racing, get a street wheel if you're going to run the car in the street. If it's a drag-only car, by all means, get the high-dollar aluminum drag wheels, whatever you want to get. Okay, knock yourself out. But if you're budget-minded, get a nice aluminum street wheel. And believe it or not, this aluminum street wheel is still lighter than your steel wheel. The aluminum wheel is much lighter than steel. So even if you get a street, you're still doing a weight savings. Now, on to my next thing. If you're gonna do a lot of track time, but you're still gonna drive the car in the street, I recommend getting a nice DOT, what they call cheater slick. Okay, I ran them for years when I used to run Street Eliminator with my Camaro. They work great. I had Mickey Thompson ET Streets. Hoosier, I think, has a line that's really, really good. M&H, I ran M&H on my Grand National. They worked very well. There's a lot of companies out there, and a lot of them make a really good tire. Just do the research. Those are just the 3 I recommend. But hey, do the research and decide for yourself. Hey, Eric runs Hoosiers, so that's what I'm going to run. I'm not saying you have to run Hoosier. Run whatever you want to run that you feel is best for you. Like I said, I like the Mickey Thompson ET Streets, but that was how many years ago? A lot of companies have come along and a lot of the technology has changed. So please research it out. Make the decision on your own. And remember, if you're going to run them every day on the street, they're going to wear out a lot faster because they're softer, okay? So that's something else to keep in mind. If you're into buying wheels, you're going to buy 4 or 6, because then you should have 2 wheels for your DOT slicks or whatever you're going to get, so you can swap them out if you're driving a car on the street. Or, accept the fact they're going to wear out quicker and just replace the tires every year or 2 years. The other thing I want to talk about here is weight reduction, okay? Obviously, anybody who's been down a quarter mile and watched racing knows the lighter the car, the lower the ET is going to be. You're going to get a better mile per hour. So, if it's your daily driver, or if it's a car you drive on the weekend, take stuff out you don't need, like the spare tire. I know my dad used to keep a heavy-ass freaking toolbox in the trunk. Get that shit out of there. That's not going to help you. Get your girlfriend, wife's purse, shoes, whatever she has in there, get that shit out of there too. Anything in the glove box you don't need. Anything that's not helping to the forward motion, get it out of there if you don't need it, okay? Because that's going to save weight. And believe it or not, it doesn't sound like a lot of weight, but you add it up, it adds up. So do that. The other thing you can do too, it depends how crazy you want to get. If you're getting more serious about doing a weekend bracket thing or whatever, you can also do this. I'm going to show you here. You could relocate the battery in the trunk, okay? Putting the battery in the trunk is 10 to 12% of weight transfer. simply by moving it back there. But remember, NHRA rules stipulate that that box, now you have to run a sealed box because they don't have a rear firewall on the Camaro. Anything with a hatchback, you got to run a sealed battery box. And if you go to tag, you don't have a sealed box, they're going to flag you, they're going to harass you, okay? So I'm telling you right now, if you have a hatchback with no rear firewall, get a sealed box. If you run something where it has a trunk, where you have the back seat and you have that divider in there, that serves as a firewall. So you can just have the battery back there with J-bolts and have it, you know, bolted down. Now, they want those bolts mounted to the frame in some way, shape, or form. They gave me crap about it one time. So I'm just telling you, if you're going to put the battery in the trunk, whether you have a sealed box or you're going to just use J-bolts, make sure that you have something that the J-bolts mounted to the frame in some way, shape, or form, or they're going to give you crap, okay? Just giving you a heads up. Also, the other thing that they're giving crap about that I've run into is the cutoff switch that is mandatory to run if your battery's in the back. When they shut it off, it has to shut the car off. A lot of guys are just putting it, wiring it in series with the positive cable. The problem with that is you hit it off, the car's going to continue to run because now it's running off the alternator. So you're going to have to run a wire off the alternator too, all right, to make sure it cuts power at the alternator and at the battery, because when they hit that switch, it needs to shut the car off. If it doesn't, they're going to give you grief, okay? All right, that being said, we're also going to take a look at, you know, timing. When I was in high school, I was small block Nova, okay? We did something we call power timing. So we would actually advance the timing to the point where it would ping, and then we'd back it off a little bit until the pinging would go away. We were averaging anywhere from 3 to 4 degrees advance in timing. Doesn't sound like a lot, but it would pick up a little bit. It took that thing, that damn car couldn't spin, that thing couldn't do a burnout in Vaseline, but we put some freaking timing into that motor. Tell you what, we could smoke the tires all day long if we wanted to. So it does work. Something to check out. Just, you know, use your timing light on your old your first gen small blocks, anything with a distributor. Use your timing light. Play around with it. Have a little fun. Take a weekend. Screw around with the timing. You might not hit it right the first time. Take your time. Figure it out. You'll get it. You'll get it there, and it will make a difference. Believe it or not. Also, what you want to do is check your air filter. Make sure it's clean. Also, if you can put a taller one, longer one, a bigger air filter on, it's going to let more air into the engine. And anytime you have more air, you know what that means. You're going to make more power, okay? And if you have it in your budget, get a K&N, was it cold air injection kit, where it's the filter, the tube, everything you need, the mounting stuff. Get that stuff. If it's in your budget, go ahead and knock yourself out and have that. I have a lot. I like the K&N stuff. I like anything, even people that copy their stuff. I've always had good experience with that stuff because the more air, it just runs better. And if you're driving it on the street, you're going to get better gas mileage too, because you're having more air and it's going to run better for you. The other thing I'm going to talk about too is valve adjustment. Make sure your valves are adjusted the way they should be. I know I used to do a trick on my Grand National. I would do, I think it was 0 lash, I believe, on the intake. And I think I went half a turn or something on the exhaust. And I forget what that did. But there's a way you can play around with your valve adjustment. But ideally, if you want to make power, you want that thing at absolutely 0 lash. Anytime you have any more preload on there, it takes a little bit away. It adds some resistance to your valve train. So if you do 0 lash, you shouldn't get any kind of valve noise, but yet you should get, you know, a little more power out of the motor. All right. The next thing I want to talk about, and maybe it's not that cheap. Again, it's one of those things. It's not too cheap, but I think for what you're going to pay, you're going to get a lot of bang for your buck, and that's exhaust headers. Find a good set of exhaust headers. If you can, depending what application you have, get long tubes. I ran the Edelblock shorties on mine for when I ran Street Eliminator, and yeah, it was all right. They were there, but I really didn't feel anything, you know, in the seat, you know. I bought a set of Hooker long tubes. I put them on the same motor, and I noticed a huge bottom end increase. The car would literally, you know, get off the line a lot better. So check that out. But remember, when you put headers on now, it's going to increase your scavenging, which means it's going to get the exhaust fumes out better, but it's also going to pull some of your intake charge out with it. So you're going to get a lean, you might get a lean condition. So the car might actually run slower. You're going to be like, Eric, this is BS. You're a jackhole. I mean, what are you talking about? Put headers on, my car got slower. That's normal, okay? Listen, if you're going to put headers on and it feels like the car is getting slower, either reject your carb or up your fuel pressure if you have fuel injection, okay? Get a little more fuel in there because that's what's happening. It's taking some of that intake charge out with the exhaust when it's pushing the exhaust out, okay? Because of the scavenging of the header, okay? Something to keep in mind when you're tuning with your timing and if you put headers and with your fuel mixture and setting up all that, something to keep in mind that headers are going to do. Also, another thing that might be free and could be a big problem is and I noticed it with my Camaro was make sure, I mean, you're gonna need 2 people to do this, but have someone sit in the car, mash the gas pedal all the way down to the floor, okay? Now what you want to do in here, if you don't mind, I'm going to walk around, I'll show you what I mean on the Camaro here. I'm going to show you on the even though mine's fuel injected, it's pretty much the same thing. So let me get this open here. Of course, I should have opened it first. Anyway, so I'm going to turn around and show you here. So you see the throttle plates here. All right. So when you dump this open, those plates should be completely open to make sure you get a wide open throttle. Okay, when you mash the loud pedal. So what you want to do, have someone inside the car. All right. And hold the gas pedal all the way to the floor. All right. Then what you want to do is peek into your throttle plates. Make sure they're wide open, what wide open throttle should be. If they're not, adjust your linkage, okay? Because obviously, if you're matting the throttle, you're not getting wide open throttle, you're not going to get the maximum performance out of it. That's for sure, okay? So something else, a freebie, could make a difference. We'll see. Anyway, last thing I recommend doing is getting a breather system on your motor, whether it's a valve cover breather. If you're mechanically able to, you can even put a sucker system on where you have a vent tube that you drill a hole into your exhaust pipe, and then you weld this bung in there, and then you there's a one-way check valve that goes on, and then you actually run like a hose from that check valve up to a breather on your valve cover. It's a kit, but it's a sucker system. So the theory behind that is that the exhaust going through your exhaust pipe creates a vacuum, and it helps create a negative pressure. So it literally sucks crankcase pressure out of the engine, which will help it run better. I noticed it a little bit on my Buick, my Grand National. I noticed a difference on it. My small block here, my LT1, I noticed a difference also on it. So it might be something, if you're able to, look into doing that and see if that helps too a little bit to free up a little ponies there. So those are a couple things that I came up with. I wanted to share with you. With the winter time coming up, a lot of tracks are closing, so it'll be a good time to do some of this stuff in the off season, to do some modifications, adjustments, tuning, whatever, and then that way come out in the spring with come out in the spring swinging. So okay, so everybody take care. That's it for now, and take care of each other, and we'll talk to you later. See you later. Bye.